Pansastapakacharya Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnu Pada Paramahansa Parivarajacharya Ashtottara Shatya Sri Srimad Shila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sikho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadada Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadev Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga Namah Vishnu Padaya. Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Shrimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Vacharine. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Prashatya. Desha Tarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th Canto, Chapter 87, Prayers by the Personified Vedas, Text 39, Translation Purport by the Disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada.
Чтение Шримад Бхагаватам, 10.87 глава, молитвите на олицетворените веди, текст 39, превод и коментари от учениците на Негово Божествено Шило.
Yadina samudharanti yatayoridi kama jata.
Yadina samudharanti yatayoridi kama jata.
Dhuradigamo satam ridigato smrita kantamani.
Dhuradigamo satam ridigato smrita kantamani.
Asutripa yoginam ubayatopya sukham bhagavan.
Asutripa yoginam ubayatopya sukham bhagavan.
Anapagatantakad anadhiruda padad bhavata.
Anapagatantakad anadhiruda padad bhavata.
Yadina samudharanti yatayoridi kama jata.
Yadina samudharanti yatayoridi kama jata.
Duradhigamo satam ridigato smrita kantamani.
Duradhigamo satam ridigato smrita kantamani.
Asutripa yoginam ubhayatopya sukham bhagavan.
Asutripa yoginam ubhayatopya sukham bhagavan.
Anapagatantakad anadiruda padad bhavata.
Anapagatantakad anadiruda padad bhavata.
Yadina samudharanti yatayoridi kama jata.
Yadina samudharanti yatayoridi kama jata.
Dhuradhigamo satam ridigato smrita kantamani.
Dhuradhigamo satam ridigato smrita kantamani.
Asutripa yoginam ubhayatopya sukham bhagavan.
Asutripa yoginam ubhayatopya sukham bhagavan.
Anapagatantakad anadiruda parad bhavata.
Anapagatantakad anadiruda parad bhavata.
Yadi, if Samudharanti. They do not uproot. Yatayaha. Persons in the renounced order of life. Hridi, in their hearts. Kama, of material desire. Jata, the traces. Duradhigama, impossible to be realized. Asatam, for the impure. Hridi, in the heart. Gataha, having entered. Asmrita, forgotten. Kanta, on one's neck. Manihi, a jewel. Asu, their life heirs. Tripa, who gratify. Yoginam, for practitioners of yoga. Ubayataha, in both worlds. Api, even. Asukam, unhappiness. Bhagavan, O personality of Godhead. Anapagata, not gone away. Antakat, from death. Anadiruda, unobtained. Padat, whose kingdom. Bhavataha, from you. Translation. Members of the renounced order who fail to uproot the last traces of material desire in their hearts remain impure, and thus you do not allow them to understand you. Although you are present within their hearts, for them you are like a jewel worn around the neck of a man who has totally forgotten it is there. O Lord, those who practice yoga only for sense gratification must suffer punishment both in this life and the next, from death, who will not release them, and from you, whose kingdom they cannot reach.
Превод. Белите живот в отречение, които успяват да изкоренят последните остатъци от материални желания в сърцата си, остават нечисти и така ти не им позволяваш да те разберат. Макар ти да присъстваш в сърцата им, за тях ти си като скъпоценност носена около врата на човек, който напълно е забравил, че е там. О Господи, тези, които практикуват йога само за сетивно удовлетворение, трябва да страдат наказание и в този живот и в следващия. От смъртта, този, който няма да ги освободи, и от теб, чието царство те не достигат.
Purport. A mere show of renunciation is not sufficient to gain a person entrance into the kingdom of God.
Показното отречение не е достатъчно да достигне човек на духовното царство.
One must undergo a thorough change of heart, symptomized by a complete lack of interest in the self-destructive habits of sense gratification, both gross and subtle.
Човек трябва да премине през промяната на сърцето, чието симптоми са пълно без липса на интерес към себеунищожителните навици на сетивното наслаждение и глуби и фини.
Not only must the true sage refrain from even thinking of illicit sex, meat-eating, intoxication, and gambling, but he must also give up his desires for reputation and position.
Не само, че истинският мъдрец трябва да изостави дори мисленето за незаконен секс, месоядство, опиати и хазарт, но трябва дори да изостави желанията си за име и позиция.
Altogether, these demands add up to a formidable challenge, but the fruits of true renunciation in Krishna consciousness are well worth a lifetime of endeavor.
Като цяло тези желания си заедно са непреодолимо препятствие на плодовете от истинското отречение в Кришна съзнание си струват усилията за цял живот.
The Mundaka Upanishad 3.2.2 confirms the statement of this verse, Kaman yak kamayate manyamana sakarmi vyajayate tatra tatra. Even a thoughtful renunciant, if he maintains any worldly desires, will be forced by his karmic reactions to take birth again and again in various circumstances.
Мундака Упанишад 3.2 потвърждава твърденията на този текст. Дори един мъдър ученик, ако той поддържа някакви светски желания, ще бъде принуден от своите кармични последици да се роди отново и да се ражда отново в различни обстоятелства.
Philosophers and yogis work hard to become free from birth and death, but because they are unwilling to surrender their proud independence, their meditations are devoid of devotion to the Supreme Lord, and thus they fall short of the perfection of renunciation, pure love of God.
Философите и йогите работят усилено за да се освободят от раждането и смъртта, но тъй като те не желаят да дадат гордата си независимост, техните медитации са лишени от преданост към върховния Бог и така те не достигат съвършенството на отречението или чистата любов към Бога.
This pure love is the only goal of a sincere Vaishnava, and therefore he must vigilantly resist the natural temptations of profit, adoration, and distinction, and also the impulse to merge into an all-consuming impersonal oblivion.
Чистата любов е единствената цел на един истинен вайшнава, която трябва много усилено да се противопоставя на естествените склонности за желание за полза, почет и отличаване и също импулсът или потика да се слее с да изпадне в съпроникващо безличностна забрава.
As Srila Rupa Goswami states in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.1.11, Anyabilashita shunyam jnana karmaryanavritam anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhaktir uttama. When first-class devotional service develops, one must be devoid of all material desires, knowledge obtained by monistic philosophy and fruitive action. The devotee must constantly serve Krishna favorably as Krishna desires.
Човек трябва да изостави всички материални желания, знания, постигани чрез монистичната философия и плодоносни дейности. Преданият трябва постоянно да служи на Кришна, благоприятно, както Кришна желава.
For those who undergo rigorous yoga discipline only to please their senses, prolonged suffering is inevitable.
За тези, които следват трудната йога дисциплина само за да удовлетворят сетивата си, продължителното страдание е неизбежно.
Hunger, disease, the degeneration of old age, injury from accident, violence from others, these are a few of the limitless varieties of suffering one can experience to varying degrees in this world.
Глад, болест и обедните на старостта, болест, нараняването от нещастни случаи, насилие към други. Това са няколко от безкрайните различни страдания, които човек изпитва в различна степен в този свят.
And ultimately, death awaits, followed by painful punishment for sinful activities.
Крайна сметка смъртта чака, последвано от болезненото наказание за греховните дейности.
Especially those who have freely indulged in sensual enjoyments at the cost of others' lives can expect punishment so severe it is unimaginable.
Особено тези, които са освободили, които свободно са се занимавали с сетивни наслаждения, за сметка на живот на други, могат да очакват наказание толкова сурово, че това е невъобразимо.
But the greatest pain of material existence is not misfortune in this life or being sent to hell after death. It is the emptiness of having forgotten one's eternal relationship with the personality of Godhead.
Но най-голямата болка на материалното съществуване не е нещастието в този живот или попадането в ада след смъртта. Това е празнотата забравата на вечните взаимоотношения с върховната личност.
Srila Swami prays, Dhambanyasa mishena vanchita janam bogaika chintaturam samuyantam aharnisham virachito dogya klamair akulam agyalanginam agyamagya janata samanana san madam dinanata daya nidhana paramananda prabho pahimam. The hypocrite who cheats himself by a pretense of renunciation thinks only of sense enjoyment and thus suffers constantly. Bewildered day and night, he is overwhelmed by the exhausting endeavors he contrives for himself. This fool disobeys your laws and is corrupted by greed for respect from other fools. O protector of the fallen, O bestower of mercy, O supremely blissful master, please save that person, myself.
Лицемер, който мами себе си с измамно лечение, мисли само за сетивно наслаждение и така страда постоянно. Объркан ден и нощ. Той е огълнат от изтощителните усилия да се въздържа. Този глупак нарушава твоите закони и е засегнат от алчността или с желанието за почет от други глупаци. О, защитнико на падналите, о, дарители на милост, о, върховно блажение Господарю, моля те, спаси този човек, мен.
Translation again. Members of the renounced order who fail to uproot the last traces of material desire in their hearts remain impure, and thus you do not allow them to understand you. Although you are present within their hearts, for them you are like a jewel worn around the neck of a man who has totally forgotten it is there. O Lord, those who practice yoga only for sense gratification must suffer punishment both in this life and the next, from death, who will not release them, and from you, whose kingdom they cannot reach.
Пределите живот в отречение, които не успеят да изкоренят последните остатъци от материални желания. Сърцата се остават нечисти и така ти не позволяваш да те разберат. Макар ти да си в техните сърца, за тях ти си като скъпоценност носил около врата на мъж, на човек, който напълно забрави, че той е там. О, Господи, тези, които практикуват йога само за сетивно удовлетворение, трябва да страдат наказанието и в този живот и в следващия. От смъртта, която няма да ги остави, и от теб, чието царство никога не могат да постигнат.
Oh, I just remember another verse. Nunang pramatam kurute vikarma yat indriya pritaya aprinoti nasarumanya yata atmanoyam asanapi kleshara asadeha. This is from the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Rishabdev instructing his sons, and he tells them that, let me see the translation so we don't speculate. You have it? When a person considers sense gratification the aim of life, he certainly becomes mad after materialistic living and engages in all kinds of sinful activities. 554.
Когато човек счита силното наслаждение за цел на живота, той със сигурност поводява по материалния живот и се заема с всякакви вид греховни дейности.
He doesn't know that due to his past misdeeds, he has already received a body which, although temporary, is the cause of his misery.
Той не знае, че заради греховните си дейности в миналото вече е получил тяло, което макар временно е причина за страданията му.
Actually, the living entity should not have taken on a material body, but he has been awarded the material body for sense gratification.
Всъщност, живото същество не е трябвало да приема материално тяло, но е получило тяло за сетивно наслаждение.
Therefore, I think it is not befitting an intelligent man to involve himself again in the activities of sense gratification by which he perpetually gets material bodies one after another.
Затова мисля, че не подобава на интелигентния човек да се взема отново с дейност за сетивно наслаждение, чрез които постоянно получава материални тела едно след друго.
Na sadhu manye. I don't think this is intelligent.
Не мисля, че това е интелигентно.
Right? This is what we had yesterday, actually. It's confirmed. Rishabdeva, he says the same thing. And, well, if we look at the world, maybe even look at ourselves, we may agree.
Ако се огледаме или погледнем себе си, ще се съгласим.
Or we may not agree, depending if you're intelligent or not intelligent. No? I mean, persons who are not, they will reject this. This is extreme, this is negative. What else one can say? What is the argument against this analysis?
Какъв може да е аргумента срещу този анализ? Ако някой каже, не, това е твърде крайно.
Defend yourself.
It's not for me.
Not for me. Maybe for you, but not for me, right? No, but it's if we think about it just objectively. Nunang pramatam kurute vikarma. It's obvious. No one is actually, if one is very much not even desirous, like desperate to enjoy. At any cost, practically speaking. And this happens, no? I mean, I think it does happen. No, that one is really so anxious to get something or to get somebody. Also. Especially. No? How many, I mean, practically most of the songs and movies and theater, right, is about the situation of, you know, you want this person, but there's an obstacle. What is generally the obstacle? There's already somebody who has that person. Right? That's the typical constellation. Man wants woman, but woman already has a man, who is the husband. Now what? So, what are you going to do? But you're desperate. You are like the fool in love. The song is, you know, they sing about this. I'm a fool in love. I mean, I like it, but I'm really crazy. I'm crazy about you, right? So then, now what to do? Take out the knife. No? Or I shot poison. That's too sophisticated. Just shoot him, you know. So you become pramata. You lose all discrimination, and you take great risks, actually risk of your life to get something. Prabhupada said in one class about, like in America, of course, more than in any other place, if you want to rob somebody, that's very dangerous. You enter somebody's property. They can shoot you. And it happened not long ago. I remember there was one incident in early, like 3 young people entered somebody's house to steal, and the guy just took out his gun and shot them all. And no problem. I mean, he will not be prosecuted. It's not, how you say, illegal. It's legal. And of course, those who do it, they know, especially in America, this is, I'm risking my life to do this.
И тези, които го правят, опитват се да знаят, това е опасно рискува живота си.
But maybe you are a junkie, I mean you are addicted and you need money by any means to get, the stuff. So then you risk your life.
И за да си получиш дозата, ти трябват пари и си рискуваш живота.
And when you have the stuff, you also risk your life. Because, just to get the kick, I mean, it's dangerous because you never know what stuff you have. Yeah? You're not a chemist, you're not going to a laboratory before you shoot it to find out whether it's okay. It has the right proportions of everything, right? Yes. I mean, sometimes happens something appears in the market, which is a new, whatever they do, and then it happens that many people who take it, they all die because it's not a very good combination. Somebody made a mistake, maybe, or maybe on purpose, but And you can go on and on having so many examples of people who are risking their lives just to enjoy in one way what they think is enjoyment in one way or another. Like it was said here, enjoying at the cost of others' lives. So generally, any kind of eating of another living entity's body means that you are enjoying, your tongue likes to taste this poor chicken or innocent fish who's swimming around. You just take him out because he tastes good, chop off the head and take out the guts and fry it, and then, it's crazy. So anyway, this is Rishabh saying that this is not, I don't think this is a good idea. He says, na sadhu manye. I don't think this is very intelligent. Why? Because by doing this, you already have gotten a material body. This is the result of crazy acting before. And now you're continuing your madness, and you're going to get another one. But we already know it's asana piklesha. Although it's temporary, okay, but still it gives you misery. For the short time you have it, it's full of misery. And even that, if one is not intelligent, he will say, c'est la vie. Yes, that's life. So what? I accept that. I don't care. I have to suffer, okay, but I also enjoy it. You suffer and you don't enjoy. You're more foolish. Right? That's what they think.
He says, at least I enjoy. You only think of suffering.
So anyway, and actually I had another verse. This is right in the beginning of the first canto, chapter 2, text 10, very important verse. Kamasya na indriya pritir labo jiveta yavata jivasya tattva jigyasa nartodyash cheha karma vihi. Life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life of self or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiring about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works.
В там първа песен, втора глава, 10 текст си казва, че желанията в живота никога не трябва да бъдат насочвани към сетивното наслаждение. Човек трябва да желае само здравословен живот, за да се съхрани, тъй като човешкото същество е предназначено за търсене на абсолютната истина. Нищо друго не трябва да бъде целта на човешките усилия.
So, purport, the completely bewildered material civilization is wrongly directed towards the fulfillment of desires in sense gratification.
Напълно обърканата материална цивилизация е погрешно насочена към изпълняването на желания за сетивно наслаждение.
In such a civilization, in all spheres of life, the ultimate end is sense gratification.
В такава цивилизация във всички аспекти на живота, крайната цел е сетивното наслаждение.
In politics, social service, altruism, philanthropy, and ultimately in religion or even in salvation, the very same tint of sense gratification is ever increasingly predominant.
В политиката, социалните дейности, алтруизмът, филантропията и в крайна сметка религията и дори освобождението, същият оттенък на сетивното наслаждение е постоянно доминиращ.
In the political field, the leaders of men fight with one another to fulfill their personal sense gratification.
В политиката лидерите се съревновават и се противопоставят един на друг, за да изпълнят личните си амбиции за стилно удоволствие.
A little further down, it says that one should satisfy the senses only in so much as required for self-preservation and not for sense gratification.
Човек трябва да удовлетворява сетивата само до толкова, колкото е необходимо за съхранението, а не за сетивно наслаждение.
Because the body is made of senses, which also require a certain amount of satisfaction, there are regulative directions for satisfaction of such senses.
Тъй като тялото е изградено от сетива, които също имат нужда от определено количество удовлетворение, трябва да има регулиращи насоки за удовлетворението на такива сетива.
But the senses are not meant for unrestricted enjoyment.
Но сетивата не са предназначени за неограничено наслаждение.
Well, that is even a truth for a materialistic person who is a little intelligent.
Това е истина дори за един материалист, който има малко интелигент.
Like eating.
Като ядене.
I mean, this is becoming more and more of a global problem.
Това се превръща в един глобален проблем.
What is called obesity. And there's different stages. First is overweight. Then there's obesity. And then there's another one. I don't know the technical. I don't remember. I know it, but it's like a little, how you say, scientific. Atoposy. What is it called? That's when you not just obese, you are
500.
two times obese. So the next step. I mean, really. You cannot even practically, some people can't even move anymore. They can't get up alone. They have to have somebody lift them with a crane sometimes.
Има всякакви случаи на нива и това е голям проблем заради такова хранене. Първото е наднорното затлъстяване и трета степен, което е двойното затлъстяване. Има специален научен термин, да се спомням. И има хора, които толкова са огромни, че могат да ги станат сами и трябва да ги дигат с крана.
I mean, there was this case some years ago, I think a Mexican man, who finally wanted to have surgery to get rid of a few hundred kilos that were extra. And they had to lift him up with some device and put him, special transport to a hospital. And then finally, from 250 kilos, you go down to 150 kilos, and it's a great gain. You're becoming almost slim. Anyway, so an intelligent person knows, no, when you eat, well, first of all, you don't eat twice as much as you really need. That's the first thing. And then now more and more people are becoming conscious that it also depends what you eat, even if it's not so much, but still it will have a very adverse effect. Like sugar is a big thing. Some will be very strong about no, because it's like poison and it will convert into fat, like the soft drinks and all that. And the industry is battling against this because otherwise they don't make money.
Както някои твърдят за захарта, че причина за напълняване и така и води до някакви канцерогени, и обаче голямата индустрия се бори да се противопостави, защото така ще бъде продажа.
Especially children. They're getting into their food all kinds of really not very healthy stuff. But the industry is not at all interested that they will be educated that don't eat this.
Имат всякакви нездравословни неща в диетата и обаче индустрията не иска да ги образува, че това не е здравословно.
So it requires intelligence to understand that yes, the senses require a certain amount of satisfaction that is accepted.
И необходима е тази интелигентност да разберем, че тази дебата имат нужда от определено наслаждение, това се приема.
But there are regulative directions, so you don't, become mad. So, Prabhupada continues, for example, marriage or the combination of a man with a woman is necessary for progeny, but it is not meant for sense enjoyment.
Например, бракът е свързване на мъж с жена, което е необходимо за създаване на потомство, но не е предназначено за сетивно наслаждение.
In the absence of voluntary restraint, there is propaganda for family planning, but foolish men do not know that family planning is automatically executed as soon as there is searched after the absolute truth.
При липсата на доброволно ограничаване има пропаганда за семейно планиране, но глупавите хора не знаят, че семейното планиране става автоматично веднага, щом хората търсят или се стремят към абсолютната истина.
Seekers of the absolute truth are never allured by unnecessary engagements in sense gratification because the serious students seeking the absolute truth are always overwhelmed with the work of researching the truth.
Търсачите на абсолютната истина никога не са привлечени от ненужни за внимание в сетивно наслаждение, тъй като сериозните ученици, търсещи абсолютната истина, са постоянно заети с работа в намирането на истината.
In every sphere of life, therefore, the ultimate end must be seeking after the absolute truth, and that sort of engagement will make one happy because you will be less engaged in varieties of sense gratification.
Във всяка сфера на живота за това, крайната цел трябва да бъде търсенето на абсолютната истина. И такива занимания ще направят човек щастлив, тъй като ще бъде по-малко заед в разнообразни дейности на сетивно наслаждение.
So let's go back to Rishabdev 554. The purport is that begging, borrowing, and stealing to live for sense gratification is condemned in this verse because such consciousness leads one to a dark, hellish condition.
Вземането на заем, просенето и кражбата, за да получиш сетивно наслаждение, тук е отхвърлено, защото такова съзнание води човек до тъмнодятско съществуване.
The four sinful activities are illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. These are the means by which one gets another material body that is full of miseries.
Четирите греховни дейности са употреба секс, месоядство, опиати и хазарт. Това са начините, чрез които човек постига друго материално тяло, пълно състрадание.
In the Vedas it is said, Asango yayam purushaha, the living entity is not really connected with this material world, but due to his tendency to enjoy the material senses, he is put into the material condition.
Ведите казват, че живото същество не е всъщност свързано с материалния свят, но заради склонността си да се наслаждава на материалните сетива е поставено в материално условие.
One should perfect his life by associating with devotees.
Човек трябва да усъвършенства живота си, като общува с преданни.
He should not become further implicated in the material body.
Не трябва да се оплита повече в материалното тяло.
So, that is the basic understanding that one should become convinced that the material body is actually undesirable.
Това е, в което човек трябва да се убеди. Материалното тяло е нежелано.
And that's not very easy.
И това не е лесно.
Because we are having had or are having material bodies in such a long time. So we are quite okay. It's not too bad. Huh? Depends on the type of body you have.
Понеже сме свикнали толкова дълго сме били в това тяло и вече се казва, че не е чак толкова лошо, зависи от тялото.
Well, that can be a problem for those who are feeling too healthy.
Може да проблем с те, които се чувстват твърде.
As we said, the sattvic, they're very, can do any type of yoga exercise, putting the feet behind the neck, and they're very proud that, look at my body, it's actually practically perfect.
Те се гордеят с това, че могат да правят такива упражнения, да се сложат краката на врата и казват, вижте, да направя всичко на практика, тялото да се
Even aging is slowed down.
Дори старостта се забавя.
And if you become like the real siddha yogis, then you can live for hundreds of years. People don't know that, but it's true.
Истинско нивото на сида йога може да живееш стотици години.
And Prabhupada said they may be 500 years old and they look like young boys.
Прабхупад каза, че може да са на 500 години и да изглеждат като млади момчета.
But is that the goal? No. You may live for hundreds of years or even then become a tree. If you really want to just live for a long time and basically a healthy life, a tree, it doesn't overeat. He doesn't have to go to a doctor to get, no need. High blood sugar or... Basically, they're quite healthy and live a long, long time. But is that the goal? No, it's not the goal. So better a short life, but with full consciousness, than a long, long life and very healthy, and you can do all kinds of things. And then what? Then you just die like a dog and become a dog. A sattvic dog. In the house of a yogi.
Добре да ти е толкова дълъг живота, но да е пълно съзнание, отколкото много дълъг живот, с уж съвършено тяло, но накрая да умреш като куче и ще се родиш като куче, но съплично в къщата на йоги.
Could be, or a mouse, So whatever may happen, but no, to get just the point to get another material body, doesn't matter what it is not desirable. Na sadhu manye. Even the body of a demigod, which isn't, we don't even know exactly. We hear about it, what we can't imagine. I mean, practically, there is no disease. And old age, no, not really. You just live and then suddenly you die. And your senses are as strong as 10,000 elephants. Even just one elephant would be quite good. Senses like 10 elephants. But 10,000? Maybe it's a little over exaggerated, but it just means, they're really strong. And they can enjoy, they don't have problem. But Rishabhdev would say, na sadhu manya. I don't think that's a good idea. Because at one point you will have to give it up again. May last a long time, but it's not eternal. So at one point you give it up and you get another one. And then generally what happens, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, you're coming from there, you're coming down here again. And then you have to work. Right. So, therefore, no. It's not intelligent. And therefore, all these verses, they indicate, well, yes, you have to live in this world, but just the necessity, and anything beyond that, not recommended.
Трябва да работим само за жизненно необходимото. Отвъд това не е препоръчено.
So, any comments or questions
Въпроси, коментари
from all the yogis and professionals?
In case of devotees, when we understand all that and we want to achieve that goal
But
of living in a way that is really just enough for the minimum maintenance, but because
of
of our
course,
bad habits, we know we don't want to cheat, but it just happens.
so
What to do?
what? Then we just have to suffer. Very simple. I mean,
But even if you know that,
you still have to suffer.
You know the consequences, but
Yes.
I cannot help myself.
So, this is explained in Bhagavad Gita, no? You know. Arjuna asked the same question, and it's answered.
Въпросът е какво да се направи, след като знаем това, искаме да го постигнем, но не може да се възприем заради старите навици и тогава ще страдаме, казва Махарадж. Но ако го знаеш, но въпреки това не можеш да се въздържиш, какво се
335, 336?
36 or
Something like that, no? Yes, Arjuna Uvacha. 336. Atakena prayukto yang papam charati purushaha anicchan api varneshya balad iva niyojitaha. O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts or stupid acts or, any unintelligent acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force?
Arjuna пита, о потомък на Вришни, кое кара човека да извършва грехове или глупави дейности, неинтелигентни, дори без желание, сякаш дори нежелано, сякаш потикван от сила, на сила.
Purport. A living entity as part and parcel of the Supreme is originally spiritual, pure and free from all material contaminations.
Изложено същество като частица от върховния изначално духовно чисто. Изначално духовно чисто и свободно от материални съмисля.
Therefore, by nature, he is not subject to the sins of the material world.
Затова по природа не е подвластен на греховете на материалния свят.
But when he is in contact with the material nature, he acts in many sinful ways without hesitation, and sometimes even against his will.
Когато е в контакт с материалната природа, действа по най-различни греховни начини, без колебание и понякога против волята си.
As such, Arjuna's question to Krishna is very sanguine as to the perverted nature of the living entities.
Като такова, и поради това, въпросът на Арджуна към Кришна е много интересен относно изградената природа, изградената природа на живите същества.
Although the living entity sometimes does not want to act in sin, he is still forced to act.
Макар живото същество понякога да не желае да действа греховно, все пак е принудено да го прави.
Sinful actions are not, however, impelled by the supersoul within, but are due to another cause, as the Lord explains in the next verse.
Греховните дейности не са обаче потиквани от свръхдушата в сърцето, но са поради друга причина, която обяснява следващия текст.
So tomorrow we'll have the next verse. Stay tuned like the cliffhanger. No, Krishna, what does he say? Bhagavan Uvacha. Not anybody, just Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. Kama esha, krodha esha, rajaguna, samudbhavaha, mahashano, mahapapma, vidyenam hi, iha vairinam. It is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world.
Върховното божествено личност каза, това е похота единствено роджена, която е родена от контакта с материалната воля на страстта и по-късно трансформирана в гняв, което е поглъщащия греховен враг в този свят.
So, kama, lust, is not only sex.
Кама и похота не е просто секс.
That's the pinnacle.
Върхната точка.
But anything that is a desire for personal enjoyment is called kama.
Но всяко желание за лично наслаждение се нарича кама.
Atmendriya iti, atmendriya priti vansha, right? Yes. Say balakam, krishnendriya priti ichcha, say prema nam. Something like that. Chaitanya Chaitamrita. Krishnadas Kaviraj makes the definition, what is the difference between lust and love.
Кришнадас Кавирaj Госвами обяснява в Чайтания Чаритамрита разликата между похота и любовта.
And very simple, Atma Indriya Priti, the desire to have pleasure via one's own senses.
Кама, много просто. Похота означава желанието да изпиташ удоволствие чрез собствените сила.
And Krishna Indriya Priti, when one has the desire to please Krishna's senses, that is called love.
А когато желанието да удовлетвориш силата на Кришна се нарича любов.
And of course one has to also understand philosophically, although, yes, let's put it like this, that this desire for pleasing Krishna's senses doesn't mean that one is left out.
Но трябва да разберем, че желанието ни да удовлетворим Кришна, това не означава, че ще бъде оставен настрани.
Right? Like in this world, if somebody tells you don't think about your own enjoyment, you just please me.
Този свят, ако някой ви каже, мисли за собственото си удоволствие само на...
Like, let's say in a relationship, where this may happen, you know. So the man says to the woman, you don't care about yourself, you know, and whether you enjoy or not. When I'm pleased, this is it. This is sufficient.
Мъжът казва на жена си, не се грижи за това ти дали изпитваш удоволствие, ако аз съм удовлетворен, това е достатъчно.
Or vice versa.
Или обратно.
So what will the other person think?
Какво ще се мисли другия?
Go to hell. I didn't want to use the four-letter word. You know. Well, hell is also a four-letter word, so. But, you know, they're very gross when they respond to such a crazy suggestion. It's unacceptable, no? Yes. But is it the same situation with Krishna? No, that we don't understand. But philosophically, we should try to understand. And the example always is the body and the parts of the body, and when the parts of the body please the whole body, then the part is also pleased. That's a simple definition how it works. Yeah, Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam. When the senses, our Prabhupada puts it that way, that we are part of Krishna's senses. So if we please Krishna's senses, then automatically we are pleased. So therefore, this kama, when the desire is just for me, like you can call it a selfish desire. So that is the transformation. The original love of God is the same energy, but it becomes transformed and is called, instead of prema, it becomes kama, when the focus of the, how you say, the enjoyment is diverted.
Това е същото желание, което имаме да удовлетворим Бога, което изкривено се превръща в кама и тогава отклонено насочено към нас.
Now one point maybe to understand that actually this is a fact is that and this is explained also in Bhagavad Gita, but it's also, you can experience it for yourself. Lust can never be satisfied.
И друго нещо, което ние може да разберем от Бхагавад Гита и от опита, че похота никога не може да е удовлетворена.
It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's eating or drinking or sex or whatever you can think of. Any type of sense enjoyment. It's never like, now I'm fully satisfied and no, you know. There is a point, what this is also explained, there comes the point of exhaustion when you really say, no more, but that doesn't last very long. It's like, you know, on a fire, you put a big amount of, like, we use ghee, okay, you know, a bigger lump of ghee, and it practically, it's out, it's finished. You know. But it's just a matter of time, because there's some little glowing, sparky spark somewhere, and gradually it will grow again and blaze more than before. You can eat until you vomit, and you will say never again, or especially drinking until you vomit, right? And you're lying there, practically you have to go to the hospital, they have to save your life by whatever, and then you say never, 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 ever again, and it only lasts 1 week until next weekend, and there you are again. You know. Confirmed. And you can extrapolate it to any kind of sense gratification. You know. So that's important. I mean, the material body, no, it comes in contact with the mode of passion, and it's never ever this can be satisfied. And therefore, Krishna says, then it transforms into wrath, anger, frustration. Then although you are having all the means of sense enjoyment, one still is not very happy. So, let's see next verse about that. Well, then he explains that this is in the intelligence and in the mind and in the senses. The lust is in everywhere practically. So, verse 39, the living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by this eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire.
Мъдрото живо същество, чисто съзнание е покрито от вечния враг в формата на похота, която никога не е удовлетворена и горите болна.
So then in 41 he says that one should curb this enemy, actually, it's called an enemy, Vairina, by regulating the senses.
И в 41 Кришна казва, че човек трябва да победи този враг, иначе Vairina, похота, като регулира сетивата.
That we heard Prabhupada say in this Bhagavatam purport, the same idea. Yes, senses are there, you have a body, you can't artificially deny it, and that's another extreme. So you have to eat, but don't eat like, you know. So you have to drink, okay, and you have to have, maybe you even need sex, okay. You need all these things, but there are so many things you don't need. So or whatever is not necessary, you have to, you know, don't take it. That's intelligence. So just as it says in the verse, the Bhagavatam, for a healthy life of self-preservation, basically. Which doesn't mean that there's no pleasure, or that there should not be any pleasure when you eat. That's another extremely crazy idea. Who wants nirguna? Food, it's unacceptable. We want to taste something. It's natural. Even, an animal will go and go away, There's cows are very expert. You think it's all green, you give them green and they go away. Say, this is very good, No, for me, this doesn't have any taste. I don't like it. So therefore, when we offer Krishna Bhoga, it should be very tasty, and then fortunately, he will give it back even more tasteful in the form of prasada. And you can enjoy it. There's no harm. But not more than necessary. That's a fact. Then it becomes sense gratification. Even though it's prasada. And that's with anything. So, coming back to the question, I think the answer is very clear. If this is a force that is there, and you have to curb it by regulation. And even, as you say, we're trying and you fail, but even though you fail, you have to continue to try. Don't surrender. We will never surrender. Churchill said that. Famous saying. We will never surrender. Yeah, that should be the determination. Although I may fail, but I will never surrender. And maybe you can get some ally. Nisingadev is just waiting for you to ask him, can you help? Randaya, tamograsa grasa om swaha. He's just waiting. I have these nails, I have these teeth. Just ask me, I'll come in. Wait. Maybe a little later. Not yet. So that's the problem. We're not yet convinced whether we want to do that. Maybe too painful. Like surgery, There's this example of the boil, You have to cut it. Wait. Some Kool-Aid on it, some cream that it's okay. And then you you have to cut it. Wait. And finally you say, okay. And it hurts like hell. But then, pain is gone. The pus is out. We all have experience, right? I think I have experience. In the early days, we were eating like crazy. Got boils all over all the time. You ask Pritu. The early feasts in Germany, amazing. It doesn't exist nowadays. Everything drenched in ghee and sugar. And you eat at least 2 or 3 times as much as you really need. And although you're only 20-something years old, you have boils all over. And when it's really bad, you finally have to, open it. So, so this may be a necessity. So you need the tea. If you can't do it yourself, then you need some help. But don't give up. Never surrender. Okay, anything else? Yeah, it's time. I know. It's Ekadasi, and actually we shouldn't even think about eating. I did this for some time. I've given it up. No eating, no drinking for 24 hours. Yeah, it can be done, but not today. All right, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Bhakti-yoga ki jai.